Good morning. How is the Governor's Council functioning in this time of the pandemic? How are you guys organizing?
So we do it by a WebEx, but the governor made a decision early on. He wasn't going to be nominating any judges during the COVID crisis. So we've been meeting to appoint notary publics to sign the Treasury warrant each week, so everyone in the state gets paid, to appoint public administrators that are needed, to appoint justice of the peace. So we, early on we signed an emergency order allowing the governor to appoint, let's say, notary publics and public administrators and justice of the peace weekly without us actually having to be there. Because usually every single Wednesday we're in the governor's office and we take votes on all the notaries, all the justice of the peace, and any public administrators. So early on, he tried to make it so that people who, especially like notaries, so that especially like real estate closings, things like that, could continue to happen. So lawyers reach out to me and they're saying, hey, my notary is expiring and I won't be able to do a closing. I won't be able to do anything without it. So, we did fit it in so that people can be renewed and people can get made, notaries and justice of the peace, things of that sort early on.
We're speaking with Joe Ferreira. He's our governor's counselor. So, Joe, in addition to this, you practice law. How has it impacted what you guys do as lawyers?
So I have personally not been to court, but I've spoken to many judges who I voted on. So over the past 5.5 years, I have appointed or gave my consent to over 150 judges in the Commonwealth, from the Supreme Court through the District Court, Superior Court, Probate Court, Juvenile Court, Land Court. So I've spoken with various judges in various departments of the judiciary in Massachusetts, and they're doing what they have to do. Some are working from home. Many are going in several days a week. The thing that's been on the uptick, domestics, not surprisingly, assault and batteries and domestic violence, restraining orders, things like that. So I spoke to the presiding judge in New Bedford the other day, and he did 8 restraining orders by telephone. And, so it's difficult. I mean, I spoke to someone in the probate court the other day on a child care and protection case where they wanted to make sure a child was safe. And, they're doing that. They're just introducing like the webinar stuff now so they can actually see the person. Because as you can imagine, it's hard to decide a case based on a phone call. You don't get to see the body language. You don't get to, eyeball someone and determine whether or not you think they're credible or not. So it's a big difference between speaking on the phone and seeing someone live.
No, absolutely. I can imagine, because it's been a change for me, right? Because normally I do my interviews face to face mostly, and that whole loss of that is incredible. And of course, this is not as serious a forum as the courtroom. No, that's an excellent point. We're speaking with Joe Ferreira. He's our governor's counselor. In terms of what's been going on here, as the state starts to reopen, what's your sense, Joe, of how that rollout's going to be, even at your end? Do you have a sense of when you folks will be back in the formal way that you do?
Yeah. So I cannot tell you that I have any inside information, because I do not. Although, right. We sit with the lieutenant governor every Wednesday. She chairs our hearings and calls for the votes on judicial nominees and so forth. And interestingly enough, a couple of hours ago, I read a new State House News Service story, which you probably read already, Chris, unless you were on the air, but talking about how Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito is going to be put to the test, because now she is tasked with commanding this committee of 17 people. So I read that she's met with 57 different industry leaders, business leaders throughout the Commonwealth to put together a plan. And, they're saying, hey, the heat's on her. If it works and our numbers don't go up, she's going to be a hero. And if things fall apart, it's going to be on her too. So she's at a very important position right now. My sense is that I think Charlie Baker, the governor, I think he's been measured response. I have friends that own tons of businesses. I have friends that are out of work because they're sick. So at the end of the day, there's got to be a happy medium somewhere along the line. We got to get people back to work, but we got to make sure we're not, killing people and putting people in unnecessary danger.
No, I agree with you. There's no manual to this, right? You can't go to page 48 and say, oh, here's what we do in this scenario.
No, I mean, I think the thing that, I don't know if it's an advantage, if you'd call it that word, but, I think the states that have opened early are kind of like the guinea pigs. They're like scientific experiments. Let's see what happens in Florida. Let's see what happens in Vegas. Let's see what happens. And those numbers will be rolling out, I think, next week, which will give us, a clearer indication of what the science is. And if you do this, you can expect that. So I think we have the benefit of having other states open way earlier than us, which may be helpful overall, I would guess.
So, Joe, and we're speaking with Joe Ferreira. He's our governor's counselor. Joe, you were very kind in putting me in connection with your daughter and our audience, too. So we were ahead of the curve, so to speak, about a lot of terminology and what was going on because she's down in New York City. How's she doing down there?
She's doing great. I remember actually before flattening the curve was fashionable language to know. Katie brought that to our attention, mine as well. So that was probably over 2 months ago. So she was had to self quarantine in her little apartment with her two roommates in Queens, New York, because she worked at Mount Sinai and there were some cases. So she self quarantined for a couple of weeks. And then she's been working from home since that point. But, working stridently on trying to get more money from Mount Sinai Hospital, who's like at the forefront of this thing. So she's writing grants to try to get funding so they can study it, more in depth at Mount Sinai Hospital. But they're all working from home, and thank God she's she's medically safe and she's healthy. But she follows the rules. She didn't leave her house for probably 6 or 8 weeks. And she's a rule follower, and she does it right.
No, we were way ahead of it when Katie told us flattening the curve, and then it was within a week. It was everywhere, right? But we were ahead of it. I actually have family members who live right by Mount Sinai, and that has been the epicenter of it. Horrific, really.
It is horrific. I mean, it's different than here. So and I speak to Katie, and we go back and forth on what's the right thing to do, the right way to open business, and for obviously, like Dad, if you lived here, you would have a very clear opinion about, we have to be extremely careful because if you see the body bags and dead bodies in tractor trailer units, you think differently, So, unfortunately, it has hit certain centers more than others, probably based on population density and, things like that,
No, absolutely. Well, Joe, listen, if because you do practice law privately, and there are still lots of things going on, and I think of businesses that may need lawyers and people that may need lawyers. How do they get in touch with you?
Well, they can look me up on the internet. I'm at law firm Lynch and Lynch, and we're in Boston, Easton, and Providence. So, or my email address is jferreira at lynchlynch.com. JFERREIRA at lynchlynch.com, and that's the email that I use, for people if they have concerns about anything regarding the Governor's Council. If they want to get made a notary public or just of the peace, or they have any issues, I'll be glad to respond and get back to them in a timely manner.
Joe, you had those great seminars out at UMass Dartmouth Law School for people who wanted to become a judge, and they were very, very successful. Well, I guess the next one will probably be remote when you do that, right?
We'll see how that rolls out. But, it is my intent. As a matter of fact, it's funny you say that because just yesterday I spoke with Judge Harrington, who was appointed about 6 months ago. He was a big practice in New Bedford area for a long time. His uncle was a judge and, very, very great family. But he came to the seminar a couple of years ago, and now he's a judge. And I got the opportunity to speak to him a few days ago when I spoke to the Chief Dombrow. To see how they're doing, and he was telling me he's going in a few days a week, and he's loving the job, and he's doing everything he can. So yes, we will be doing more seminars so that we can get local lawyers to be local judges who know our community and do the best they can for us.
No, I think it's been great. It's been great. I've been to the seminars. It really has been a very successful thing that you've done, and your initiative has paid off tremendously for the local community. So I appreciate that. Listen, Joe, be safe, be good. I'll see you soon. Not too soon, but I'll see you soon, I hope.
Well, I appreciate everything, and don't forget, the election's coming up, and I don't know if you saw the Supreme Court lowered the amount of signatures candidates need. If you want to talk about that sometime, we can. But, I haven't heard of anyone running against me. Hopefully it stays that way. But
when is the deadline?
So the deadline to submit our signatures to cities and towns got extended by a week by the Supreme Court. So that ended May 5th. So anyone that wanted to run for any of these offices, whether it's county, statewide, or registry of deeds, things like that, had until May 5th to give their paperwork to the local cities and towns. So when I started running, I needed 1,000 signatures. If I had a Somerset paper, I'd bring it to the Somerset town clerk to get certified. When I got New Bedford signatures, which I got a lot of, I had to go to the New Bedford city clerk. So I already got all those back, and I got like 1,500 certified signatures. Now I then went to the Secretary of State, turned them all in, so I'm on the ballot. So people that would want to run against us, what the Supreme Court said, because of COVID and things like that, they cut the number of signatures needed exactly in half and allowed you to do some variation of electronic signatures. So they had until May 5th to get them to city and town clerks, and the city and town clerks have until May 26th to certify them, so that people would then go to the Secretary of State's office with all their certified signatures. So it's still out there, but it's been a lot of work, and it's been difficult for any candidate to get the signatures when you can't communicate with people and knock on doors and stand at the local town dump or the Stop and Shop to get signatures. Right. But luckily, I hit it hard early on, and so we ended up with plenty. But it's been an interesting process, and I'm really glad that cities and towns held off elections. I didn't think it was fair to elderly people and any voter to make them go to voting places during this crisis. I think that stuff could wait and did wait, and I think that was smart of cities and towns to hold off local elections.
Yeah, no, I do agree, but if all the way around, because it's such a new environment, you got to figure out how you're going to do it and how you make it safe and how you make people feel like they can do it. But no, that's good stuff. So we'll get the opportunity to vote for you again. I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for having me on, as always.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.
All right, take care.
That was Joe Ferreira, former chief of police in Somerset.